Thank you, Arfad, coming in from the World Trade Center, the IABC office and secretariat in Jakarta. My name is George Iwan Marantik. I'm coming in from the heritage city of Jakarta to be here with you today. And as we begin to proceed with this session, I want to again thank, as Arfad has, the Victoria Government, Ms. Rebecca Hall, the Southeast Asian Commissioner for the Victoria Government, for collaborating with us today, IABC, the Indonesian Australian Business Council, APTISI, the Association of Private Higher Education Institutions of Indonesia, and also the Chamber of Commerce and Industry, or KADIN Indonesia, the Australian Committee. I also want to thank Mr. Xiao Zhang, the Counsellor for Education, or Education Counsellor, Education Research Counsellor of the Australian Embassy in Jakarta. We have a very good session today discussing a very important issue related to the plight of our children, and that is the loss of learning that is quite evident during this pandemic. And so therefore the theme of today is the post-pandemic challenge, overcoming the learning loss. So how do we overcome it? And today we have people coming in from around the region, from Singapore, from Jakarta, obviously Indonesia, from Australia, and also from other parts of the world, including the Philippines, to discuss how we all can work together and collaborate together to overcome this challenge. And obviously, this will be a long game, as I say, because education is not as simple as a turn off, turn on, turn off switch. So therefore, these type of forums are very important, and we will see what the solutions are. We will have also coming on board subsequently the Director General for from the Ministry of Higher Education, the Ministry of Education, Culture and Research and Technology, in charge of teachers and education personnel. He will be coming on board subsequently. So without further ado, we shall begin this session with an opening address by Ms. Rebecca Hall, the Commissioner for Victoria Government to Southeast Asia, coming out of Singapore. Ibu Rebecca, the Zoom floor is yours.
Good morning, Pak George, and good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today on the 21st of December as we head into end of year in Australia. But this important conversation is one that we didn't want to leave for 2022. And as you acknowledged, Pak George, a very important conversation to have with our partners from across Australia, in our case, Victoria, and our partners in Indonesia. So it's my absolute pleasure, one, to be the Commissioner for Victoria to Southeast Asia. It's a very broad and challenging role, and one of the key parts of my role as Commissioner is advancing and protecting our education interests and partnerships between Victoria and Indonesia. So another part is advancing our broader partnerships. So I want to start my remarks by acknowledging the important partnership we have with the IABC and the conversations and projects that we hope to see come from these conversations. As you did acknowledge, yes, I'm coming to you from Singapore, but I'm looking very much forward to next year being able to visit in Indonesia and continuing the great work that our team on the ground, our education team with Belinda Rimbo and Joe Hasham, the great work that they have been leading on education. I want to acknowledge our panel of speakers and actually keep my remarks quite short because I'm really looking forward to hearing what our keynote speakers and panel have to say. So can I firstly acknowledge and thank the Director General for Teachers and Education Personnel, Dr. Iwan Syahril from the Ministry of Education, Culture and Research. We're delighted that you have made time to join us as a keynote speaker. Also acknowledging our partners in the Teachers Association and also the Chairman of the Association of Indonesian Private Universities, who are going to share with us the experience of educators in Indonesia and how they have been adapting to the world of online blended learning and what we now know as the new normal. We know that in many economies and countries around the world, the transition to digital learning and hybrid or remote learning has not been without its challenges. We're absolutely confident that the way forward is continued partnership, and the way forward is to learn together and to take the lessons from 2021 and 2020 in terms of how we've applied teaching and learning and how we've adapted, hopefully into stronger policies and partnerships from 2022 and beyond. So in that, I also want to acknowledge Bu Feni Santoso from Deputy Director of the RC project. Very keen to hear how that project has been advancing, particularly work with frontliners and identifying solutions to develop some of the challenges that are faced by industry. And of course, lastly, it's a very big panel, acknowledging our partners from CMEO Innotech, who we have been learning from throughout the journey and their work across the Southeast Asia Ministries of Education. Let me just round out my remarks by commenting on Futurelearn and the specific initiative that the team in Southeast Asia in the Victorian Government Trade and Investment Office, along with our Study Melbourne colleagues, committed to this year as part of our contribution and to showcase and support teachers during this challenging time. So we've been delighted to partner with Futurelearn to procure and create the first Study Melbourne online teacher showcase, a collaboration between 9 of our leading education providers and academics who are sharing their knowledge, their tips and their insights in bite-sized programs that are available for current teachers, for those who are learning or committed to teaching practice, and particularly designed for Southeast Asia audiences. And I wanted to close on that because I acknowledge the broad work that a number of organisations do, but noting Futurelearn released a very important report earlier this year that we were fortunate to contribute to, which addressed the very issue of this topic, which looked at the issues that are facing not only learning loss, but more broadly digital poverty and how that impacts access to education and to learning, and how we can use new tools and partnerships to be able to advance that. I think one of the best things from our work that we've learned this year, and we know, is that education is a shared experience and that we want to connect more people to learn together. And actually, we want to build communities of practice and support others through the process. So I think for us, we are no stranger to partnerships. Over the years, we've helped facilitate many partnerships with education providers, schools, and corporates, sharing curriculum, developing teacher training and professional development opportunities. And going forward into 2022, we plan to double down on that. We're keen to develop collaboration and partnerships with the education stakeholders in Indonesia, particularly supporting the Ministry of Education, Culture, Research and Technology with its development plans and initiatives. We know that partnerships are the key to success and that they also form the basis of our values and our purpose of operating together through Victoria and Indonesia. So thank you so much for the opportunity to provide the opening remarks, and I look forward to joining our participants in hearing from our keynote speakers and panel members today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ibu Rebecca, the Commissioner for Victorian Government for Southeast Asia. And we also look forward when you're able to come to Indonesia, and obviously we shall see what the virus will take, but IABC and the various organizations such as UpTC and Kadin that are collaborating with us will also begin to start face-to-face dialogues, or with limited maybe attendance next year. So thank you, Ibu Rebecca, and hopefully next year we can do these dialogues either hybrid or face-to-face. Thank you, Ibu Rebecca. And now we lead to the next speaker, and that is a very important person in terms of the education sector, in terms of the relationship between Indonesia and Australia. And he has just arrived in Jakarta. He is the new education counselor for education and research of the Australian Embassy in Jakarta, Mr. Xiao Zhang. And Mr. Xiao Zhang, welcome to Indonesia. Welcome to Jakarta in Indonesia. I give the Zoom floor to you to provide your opening remarks.
Terima kasih, Pak George, and selamat pagi, everyone. I would like to start by thanking Rebecca and the Victorian Government for providing me with this opportunity to say a few words at this important forum. I will outline the Australian Government's involvement in relation to learning loss in Indonesia through the pandemic period. But before I start, I would like to share a story. I mean, this topic is very close to my heart as I cast my mind back to my school days. I'll admit, I wasn't the best student, not by any measure, and I certainly skipped a few days of school back in my day. I really did enjoy going to school because I enjoyed learning and I loved having friends and peers to play with. And while I wouldn't admit at the time, but the stuff that I learned at school and all those social interactions that I had shaped me into the person I am today. So I'm very grateful for those opportunities. And so I can certainly empathize with the students that are going through the current situation that's never been predicted, never been seen before. So it's a very challenging environment. So this event comes really at a time as we see Indonesian students starting to get back into the classrooms after almost 18 months of mostly studying at home. And I understand the Indonesian national guidelines is also pushing for more schools to open in 2022. And that's a really good thing. But once students start to go back to school, the focus will shift towards something else. And it's around the learning loss. I understand there's been significant learning loss experienced in Indonesia, up to 5 to 6 months per student. And that impact is particularly profound for students from disadvantaged backgrounds. So girl students, those who are poor, those with a disability, and those from remote areas. We understand this is a significant undertaking in addressing the learning loss, and that's why the Australian Government is assisting through the process and trying to get students get back to the classroom. Through the university program, Australian Government is allocating more resources to learning recovery. Separately, in a partnership with the World Bank and the Indonesian Government, we are conducting research into learning loss and also running a whole bunch of webinars on learning recovery. But we recognise this is a significant undertaking. School teachers and principals now more than ever need support to get the students back up to their learning levels. In Australia, there's a very strong focus for institutions to prepare and to ensure the teachers have the adequate skills, capabilities, and knowledge to be successful in the classroom. In the recent past, we've had a much more stringent requirements in relation to selecting students to become teachers. And also, we require prospective teachers to be in the top 30% of the adult population in relation to literacy and numeracy. As you can see, the Australian institutions can play a significant role and can assist Indonesian by delivering training to teachers. We've seen some fine examples of that in the past with the International Skills Training Program, where Australian institutions delivered training and upskilled different cohorts of Indonesian vet trainers who went on to teach their craft to Indonesian students. And I would like to acknowledge some of the Victorian institutions that have been at the forefront of these type of programs, including Victoria University and Melbourne Polytechnic. So, as you can see, there are collaboration and cooperation happening at different levels. And this is indicative of the strong, long-standing relationship between the two countries and the institutions within the two countries. But that's not to say more can't be done and more shouldn't be done. Australia can play a significant role in assisting with the learning loss recovery, and our institutions have the capabilities to assist. I see great opportunities in us working together going forward as we come out of the classroom, come out of COVID, return to the classroom and address the learning gaps. Thank you once again for providing me this opportunity to say a few remarks. And terima kasih, and back to you, George.
Thank you, Mr. Han, Zhang, and welcome to Indonesia again. And looking forward to obviously collaborating with you in various aspects related to the education sector. Thank you, Mr. Han. So we have heard now from the Victoria Government, from Ibu Rebecca Hall, representing the Victoria Government of Australia. And we've heard also from the Australian Government, represented here by the Education Counsellor of Australian Embassy, Mr. Han Zhang. And now we will hear from the Indonesian Government to provide a keynote address today for us this morning is Dr. Iwan Syahril, Ph.D., the Director General for Teachers and Education Personnel of the Ministry of Education, Culture, Research and Technology of the Republic of Indonesia. So I want to welcome Dr. Iwan Syahril today, and I give the Zoom floor to you, Pak Iwan. Kami persilakan, Pak Dirjen.
Thank you so much, Pak George. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me to this forum. Thank to Indonesia Australia Business Council and Victoria State Government Australia. I think this is a very timely issue that we need to discuss because it will affect a lot of lives. The impact of the pandemic is really enormous, and if decisions that we make today will impact tens of years to come in there. So please allow me to use a few slides to structure my presentation today. Can I do the screen share? Or I think I will continue my presentation, and later when we can do the screen sharing, I will use the slides then. So first of all, I'd like to say that before the pandemic hit us, I think Indonesia, the President Joko Widodo already tasked the new Minister of Education and Culture at the time. Now it's Minister Education, Culture, Research and Technology, Mr. Nadiem Anwar Makarim, for thinking about the breakthroughs, how we can leapfrog the situation in education in Indonesia so we can answer the challenges of our time. So we call this philosophy of education policy Merdeka Belajar, which the translation in English is actually emancipated learning. So learning that emancipates the learners and the stakeholders so they can pursue innovation and also can grow holistically and to be the best version of they can be, because we believe all diverse talents and potentials are very important for us for shaping our civilization. So it's not only certain areas. Okay, now it's possible screen share. So can you see my slide now?
Yes, we can, Pak.
Okay, so the goal of Merdeka Belajar is about the student. So I think one of the transformed mindset or orientation in education policy is that we hyper focus on how to make the impact to the student. So if we have like student-centered learning in the classroom, we believe that we should also have like a student-centered policy. So then all these decisions are about how to give the maximum benefit for student learning. And emancipated learning or Merdeka Belajar, we have three main pillars. The first one is the access or the high enrollment. So students that are in their age, they should go to school, have access to school. And while they're in school, they have to be exposed to very good quality experiences or high quality outcomes. And the third pillar is about equitable distribution across geography, socioeconomic status. But the secret ingredient is the one on the left side, which is agency, influence, and support from all stakeholders, including students and learners. AKA, this is our philosophy of gotong royong. So we believe that to transform the whole system, we need to come back to this philosophy of gotong royong. All stakeholders will join together to create whatever contribution, big or small, but towards the maximum of student learning. So the key initiatives in Merdeka Belajar, I can share like there are 10 main things. The first one is to implement school collaboration and mentorship program. Number 2, improving teacher quality. Number 3, establish tech-enabled national education platform for pedagogy assessment administration. Number 4, incentivize private sector contribution and collaboration in education. Number 5, to drive industry ownership and autonomy in vocational education. Number 6, to revamp national curriculum, pedagogy, and assessment. Number 7, to simplify accreditation mechanisms and enable autonomy. Number 8, collaborate with regional governance to ensure equitable distribution. Number 9, unbundle world-class tertiary education. And number 10, establish school and learning environment of the future. What we want to create is the one on the right side, which is an ecosystem where learning is a joyful experience. It's an open system where we can do gotong royong, or stakeholders can collaborate, teachers as facilitators of learning, and then the pedagogy that is based on competency and values and curriculum and assessment, a more learning-centered approach, technology-enabled ecosystem, and then relevant programs, freedom to innovate, and agency of all stakeholders. So this is like the end, or the kind of ecosystem that we want to create in our education system. And so in my Directorate General, when we talk about teachers and education personnel, we also have the same kind of framework. Like at the very top, whatever we do, it's not about just how many teachers that we have trained, but it's more about, if we have trained a teacher this way, what kind of impact that they can give to the student. So the top is always about the student. And then we have 5 key programs for teachers and education and personnel. The first one is to transform the leadership, because we believe that we invest in leadership. The school can be like an independent learning community that do a lot of innovation for different contexts in wherever region and what kind of students that they serve in the communities that they are in. Number 2 is to transform the pre-service teacher education. This to push that the production of like the new teachers with the mindset that focusing on students and their learning. Number 3 is to develop centers of excellence for teacher learning in all the provinces that we have, because it's a very decentralized system. So at the moment, the centers of excellence for teacher learning are all located in Java. So we were thinking about how to spread the center of excellence towards all over Indonesia. And number 4, the belief that we need to do the gotong royong, so government can never do it alone. So we think about strategies to empower communities. And number 5, number 1 until 4 cannot be done without us revising the regulation and improving the governance. One of the big paradigm shift in education evaluation in Indonesia is we move from content focus, like subject focus for our education evaluation, to more like international standard, focusing on the foundational skills, literacy, numeracy, and character. Because we believe that these are like the core skills in the world that is going to be continuously disrupted, a lot of uncertainties. So the skills for learning, unlearning, and relearning, which is based on these core competencies, the literacy, numeracy, and character, are very important. Now, and then COVID hit us, and then this gives us a lot of issues, just like the rest of the world. For the teachers, it's difficult for them to teach classroom management, and they cannot cover the whole thing in the curriculum. Student-teacher interaction time. For the parents, now they are becoming more central in their children's learning, because they need to collaborate with the teachers, but they also have difficulties because they cannot accompany their children, because they also have to work. They cannot understand the lessons as well, because maybe it's too difficult, and motivating their own children during this difficult time. And students also, we found from our survey that they find it difficult to learn and overwhelmed by the assignments, a lot of mental health situation as well. But at the same time, we know that pandemic is not only a disruption to the learning itself, but can be also an opportunity to reimagine and revitalize education. I think previously it was mentioned that technology now is one of like the biggest factor during the pandemic, and suddenly the ecosystem becomes more mature in using the technology, and we also believe that this will bring a lot of hope for us. But what is more important is not the technology, it's the mindset challenge, the mindset change. I think from our observation in Indonesia, Indonesian teachers and educators are becoming more comfortable with the uncomfortable. This will be very good for the culture of innovation, where we need to embrace uncertainties. And also the mindset of a learner, instead of like the routine, because what they have been doing is always like the same thing and no revisiting or critical reflection. Now everything is disrupted, so we need to learn new things. So there are a lot of like learning communities all around Indonesia, and the focus of these communities is to put students first, because they are thinking about how to solve the problem of learning of their students. So this also shaped the mindset, focusing on their student and embracing the use of technology like all over the world. What is more important here is that lowering the anxiety, because we believe we did like a small research at the beginning of the minister's term. The adoption of the technology is not because our teachers are not capable of using technology, but it's because the high anxiety, and COVID has pushed our teachers to because no option, and to lower their anxiety, and then this we hope will accelerate the adoption of technology in teaching and learning. And also in our survey, what we see is when we think about the mindset change, this was a survey that we did last year. I want to highlight number 3 and number 6. Of course, all indicators are going up as we understood the COVID better, and then we could manage more efficiently. But number 3 and number 6 arguably are the things that did not used to happen a lot. Like assigning students to read supplementary materials. In the past, teachers focused more on their textbooks and finishing what is in the textbook. And number 6 is about assigning students to do more like creative assignments. So the COVID pandemic has also pushed our teachers to think differently, to use like other resources, not only for teaching, but also for assessment. And in our Directorate General, we have this platform called Guru Belajar and Berbagi that show the resilience of Indonesian teachers in using technology to face, to answer the challenges during the COVID. We have now 11 learning series in Guru Belajar and Berbagi, and we have 1.1 million teachers who have signed up voluntarily, not because there's instruction from their principal or instruction from the local head office, but they wanted to learn, and they sign up in this platform to learn like different series to improve their competency. This is a very promising sign. Not only that, but also see that more than 73% schools all over Indonesia participated in here, including 40% of teachers in very difficult areas. We call that 3T areas have participated in Guru Belajar and Berbagi. This also challenged the notion that if they are from remote areas, they couldn't participate, and our teachers have proved us wrong. Actually, they can. They showed resiliency to deal with the challenges. When I visited one region, this was in Lombok Tengah. This is actually a school, Innov school, and I think this is a collaboration with the Australian government, which is fantastic. We see that it's possible for, even in conditions that are modest, progressive pedagogy can happen. In this classroom that I visited, students are grouped based on their level of competency in literacy and also numeracy. But this was a reading class, so a literacy class. So students from different grades, they got together and they started to learn about literacy, and it's amazing, like the motivation grew, and also the learning outcomes also grew. And again, like this happened in a school that is very modest, and then in they also use only the regular funding. They didn't get additional funding, but it's possible to do. So these schools and their teachers are empowered. And this is something like a mindset change that we see a lot during the pandemic. This is just like a different data about the platform. We have the Guru Berbagi platform where teachers using the crowdsourcing model share the teaching and learning ideas during COVID. This platform has been visited 108 million times, and there are like almost 200,000 lesson plans and more than 12,000 articles, videos, and been downloaded more than 28 million times, and a lot of collaborative actions at the same time. Again, this is the data that show that our teachers are quite resilient in facing the pandemic. Going forward, the Ministry of Education, Research and Technology, we also plan to have like an app for education where we want to simplify a lot of processes in administration and to provide also the resources for teachers, not only to teach, but also teachers to learn and collaborate. Because we believe it's not enough for teachers just to learn by themselves, but also collaborate so then they can also share with each other the spirit of gotong royong that we mentioned earlier. We know that learning loss is a very great concern, especially for Indonesia too, and a lot of issues, especially for the marginalized population, the most vulnerable groups. We know that the online learning is not very effective. A lot of problems that we have to, the dropout rate, especially for the girls, disabled population and children, and the socioeconomic status. And this we need to get together and collaborate for this, because the most important part at the moment that we want to push is that to send students back to school, which is not easy to do. But this is like a huge campaign that we're doing now. But at the same time, we also have the national assessment data that we just completed this year. The analysis will be published early next year, in which we can see our areas hotspot for intervention. And that will give us more targeted intervention, because our size is pretty big and the scale is pretty big. So then we can tackle the problem of learning loss, especially for the most marginalized population. I think that's all that I can share for today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bapak Dirjen, Dr. Iwan, Syahril, and thank you for providing the time to join us today. Obviously, you're one of the leading persons in our Ministry of Education. And before you leave, because I know you have to leave after this after your remarks, but before you leave, may we ask a question? And that is, what is your view of how to move forward in terms of 2022, and how do you forecast the prospects of our education? You might say implementation, yeah, in terms of facing 2022, because I think everybody wants to hear from the government and related to this. Please, Dr. Iwan.
Yeah, so we learned from the studies that have been done, including the studies we collaborated with Inovasi and the ministry, that when we reduce, right, less is more, basically, right? So we learned that, and we see the data. It's amazing, you know, like because previously also the mindset is more, right? We add more content, and then we hope that more learning happens. But it's the opposite, less is more. So when we reduce, and this is because of the COVID, we allow, or the schools feel safer to do this, the learning increases. And this is, a lot of other countries have done this. We know, like in Singapore, the tagline, you know, the less is more, has been, I think, popular since the end of 1990s. And this is happening, and so going forward, we have the curriculum, prototype curriculum, which we will open. At the moment, we limit to the Lighthouse School project or Sekolah Penggerak program, but next year it will be open to all the schools, so then they can be encouraged to experiment with this prototype curriculum. We hope this still prototype because we want to get the feedback, and so then we can implement this more comprehensively once we get the feedback data. But focusing on the foundational skills, literacy and numeracy, is very important, we cannot just like boil the ocean. We need to hyper focus, and we need to invest on the skills that will reap the greatest return of investment going forward for our students. So the ability to learn, relearn, unlearn, and relearn is very important. So it's about the mindset. So it's not memorizing the content like we used to emphasize. So if you how you, it's not like in mathematics, not how fast you can complete the problems with you know, you memorize the quick formula, right? But it's more mathematical thinking. And in our new vision of teaching and learning, the curriculum, the prototype curriculum, is a lot more of 25% will be about project-based learning, where subjects from across, you know, areas like math or art can collaborate, and then they do projects together. And this is like a disruptive move, but we think this is required to do. Of course, we need to support teachers for not only the mind, but also the skill set to do this. Because again, in the real world, you don't see like traffic problem as, oh, this is only traffic problem is physics problem. No, it's all the subjects, you know, all the disciplines come together. So how do you solve that traffic problem or other problem, pollution and etc.? We need to do it together. So that is the vision going forward. And we want to invest in leaders. Why we think this is important? Because if we have good leaders of school that can understand about how to execute student-centered learning, can mentor and coach other teachers. So the professional learning communities that at the moment in Indonesian schools, they feel like they have to go outside. But the professional learning communities of teachers should start first and foremost in the school. So then they can, and the principal will be like leaders of learning in that school. So then learning problem of their students can be tackled immediately by this professional learning community. They don't need to wait for another semester to be sent to a workware to solve the problem of now. So they need to do it much more quickly, much more efficiently, and much more relevantly. So, and by having these teacher leaders, we call this instructional leaders, we believe that we can quickly accelerate the transformation that we want. At the moment, we have about 16,000 teachers that are in this program. By 2024, we hope to get about 400,000. So our work for the next 2-3 years is going to be crazy. But we want to hit the number because the number of schools in Indonesia is about 300,000. So when every principal and also school supervisor is already aligned that what they serve is not the bureaucrats, but they serve is the students, right? So that is like the core essence of who you are as a teacher. You serve the students. So what is good for the students, then do it. Do innovation, do adjustment, accommodation, as long as it's what's best for the student learning. And that is the kind of leadership that we want to create. So also a change of paradigm from focusing on administration, school leaders, now focusing on student learning. So they are leaders of learning. So those are like some of the highlights that we are trying to push going forward, how we can we can transform the education system. And don't forget about that the app that we are creating. It's going to be game changer. We believe that a lot of the problem of access and also quality to some extent, because teacher absenteeism is a problem, especially in remote areas in Indonesia, can be tackled through technology, where not only accessing the content, but also facilitating for teachers to collaborate and learn from each other.
That's very interesting. Yeah, micro learning. Yeah. So less is more. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that is a very interesting. I think all of us are very enlightened by your remarks and are now much more confident in facing 2022, because persons like yourself and Minister Nadiem have a plan to take this on, this challenge on. So thank you for your participation today. And we hope to invite you in many more events and dialogues in the future. Thank you.
for having me, Pak George. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. So now, everyone, we'll begin to start kicking off our panel. And we have remarks from the chairman of the Association of Private Higher Education Institutions to come first, because Dr. Budi Jatmiko, because he will be coming in via video recording due to a event happening at the same time right now, a face-to-face event happening at the same time right now for the association. So we'll listen to him from the video recording. I will give Pak Arfat the floor to present the video. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning. Hello, Mas Judge Iwan Marantika and Honorable Rebecca Hale, Senior Commissioner, Victorian Government. Honorable Han Zhang, Counsellor, Education Australian Embassy Jakarta. Honorable Dr. Iwan Syahril, Ph.D., Director General for Teacher and Education Personnel, Ministry of Education, Culture, Research and Technology. Distinguished panelists, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of TC, I want to thank the organization of this webinar, IABC, Kadin, Victorian Government and the Australian Embassy in Jakarta for bringing to our attention the post-pandemic challenge of overcoming learning loss. During the COVID-19 pandemic, children in Indonesia and around the world face difficult challenges in learning. As we experience in Indonesia, children in school and also young adult learning in higher education, institutional and university area are we having difficulty in absorbing their education. The learning loss case by the COVID pandemic is significant. The COVID pandemic has forced almost all schools and campuses to practice on learning through the use of communication technology as an alternative. However, as we notice, technology alone is not enough. Teacher and lecturer, including professor, are required to have a different skill set than before. Indonesia and the world are still adapting to this new challenge in education. It is my hope that this webinar can contribute to providing a solution and how teacher, a lecturer, and professor adapt to the new reality of education. Welcome to the new era of campus on the cloud. Thank you.
So thank you, everyone. We have heard now from the chairman of APTC, Dr. Budi Jatmiko. And now we're going to listen from PGRI, the Association of Teachers of the Republic of Indonesia, Professor Dr. Unifa Roshidi, MPD, whom is the president of the Indonesian Teachers Association, or PGRI. Professor Dr. Unifa Roshidi,
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Professor, for providing the time. Obviously, in your very hectic schedule, you are the commander of the teachers here in Indonesia. So, as the president of PGRI, of the Indonesian Teacher Association. So, Ibu Professor, the Zoom floor is yours to share your thoughts and
me?
remarks. Yes.
Okay. What time for me?
About
5 minutes?
Yes, please.
Oh, 5 minutes. Hopefully I can do with the 5 minutes. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me to join this very important seminar. How do we overcoming learning loss? Yeah, I'm trying to see from our side, assessing quality teachers training in Indonesia. Here, since the government decided to carry out learning from home through either online and offline distance learning services. Yeah, we realized after having too long learning at home, the students have been feeling much pressure for not being able to learn as much as the usual learning through face-to-face learning. Of course, yes, they have been undergoing with stress, strain, and fear of losing their opportunity to learn against the standard to be performed based on the school curricula. This would result the deficit of competence, as we discussed before in many times. On top of the existing short of education quality confronted with the students in the archipelago, even long before the pandemic, of course. It's the data from Monet. I think I haven't to read. I haven't to read. So with the 5 minutes, what should the government and the we organization address to overcome with the severe potential learning loss in the near future? The government would be even more meaningful for all of the students than they were by providing all the poor and remote students inequitable access to the internet, such as through making the internet backbone works and well connected to schools and classrooms to avoid the very costly access to the internet by distributing the fee quota to each of the students throughout. So we are thinking about how do we develop internet backbone across the country, okay? And the second one, distributing the Wi-Fi devices to each of the schools to make all the teachers and students free of using the internet and easily access to more information and able to develop their own innovation in teaching and learning. And the creating a sustainable training system for all the teachers in all parts of the country while developing their capacity to design and implement the on and offline hybrid instructional modes of learning that we are suggestion to the government. Apart from those threatening phenomena, this pandemic era is such a momentum to undertake a major reform in education and learning toward the upcoming post-pandemic era. In the coming post-pandemic era, the normalized school practice such as to return to pre-service conventional learning modes would not be sufficient. We need to come up with the immense educational transformation. It's not just to employ some correction of the school practices that hovers around the axiom, the more of the same. Some major transformations are needed in terms of educational standards, school curricula, modes of instruction, and also assessment. A vital change in the approach of learning is then needed from the content-based toward the more intensified process of student learning. A school curricula to develop student capacity to learn through strengthening their basic literacy and numeracy competencies and their application through learning process as mirror. And this is what we have been doing and our commitment to overcome learning loss. From the PJRI side, PJRI itself has carried out a various effort to improve the competency of teachers national, provincial, local, and school levels. The effort, among others, are webinar series, development of teacher skill, building a teacher learning circle, TLC, peer-to-peer teacher training, and development of curriculum of pandemic era. And this is Assessing Quality Teacher Training in Indonesia, webinar series involving virtually all the teachers. It is there since the beginning, yeah. To maintain their teaching moral and self-confidence, develop teacher skill to design online student learning and assessment, bidding TLC. This is our priority program, a teacher learning circle from the bottom line throughout the country, by which all the teachers in each school and locality work together and solve learning problems faced by the teachers and students. Series of peer-to-peer online and offline teacher training system in its school, local as well as provincial level, develop a more practical school curriculum that I have mentioned before. Yes, this is what we have been doing, and later on we can discuss more about what we have to do in the next future in order to overcome learning loss. With 5 minutes, I think enough. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor, for those remarks, and thank you for PGRI's contribution to facing the challenges of this pandemic in the terms of overcoming learning. Thank you, Ibu, Professor Unifa Roshidi.
Okay.
And so now thank you, Ibu. Terima kasih, Ibu. So now we're coming into the next speaker today, or panelist, is Ibu Feni Santoso, the Deputy Director of the Inovasi Project, to share with us.
Ibu Feni, how are you, Ibu Feni?
Baik, Bu. Salam
Ya Allah,
kembali.
Ibu udah lama nggak dengar kabar.
Yes.
Silakan Bu, silakan. Thank you.
Silakan, Bu. Thank you.
Oh yeah. Can I share screen, Pak George? Can you see?
Please, Bu. Yeah. Thank you.
Is it showing now?
Yes. Yeah. Sure.
Okay, good. Okay, right. So, good morning, Indonesia. Good afternoon to Australia, and also good day to everyone. Thank you to IABC and Victoria Government Trade and Investment for inviting Inovasi to be part of this important webinar. So I think I'm just going to share the result of the Inovasi Learning Gap Study conducted in April, May of this year, and what we're doing to support learning recovery. Very briefly, Inovasi is a partnership between the governments of Australia and Indonesia. The program aims at supporting the government to accelerate improvement of learning outcomes for Indonesian children in early grades, especially at primary level. So we focus on foundational skills through improvement of teaching quality, support for teachers, and learning for all. Our 5 key areas of focus include curriculum, teacher practice, school leadership, teacher management, and assessment. Now, the learning gap study was conducted by Inovasi in collaboration with the MOEC, the Center for Education Policy and Standards. I think Pak Iwan mentioned that earlier as well, and also Mr. Zhang. Yeah. And given that the majority of students were learning from home during the pandemic, the impact on education has varied, but nevertheless, all children have been affected one way or another, directly or indirectly. So the purpose of this study, I'm just going to go through because I don't have time to explain everything, but you can read some of that information on the slide. So the purpose of the study was to identify learning gaps, indication of learning loss, and the impact of COVID-19 on student participation and the groups most affected. The study sample was quite comprehensive, covering, Western, Eastern Indonesia, regular and Islamic schools, grade 1 to 3 girls and boys, principals, teachers, and parents or guardians. So our study compared progress in early grades, literacy and numeracy before and during the pandemic, showing an indication of a loss of 5 to 6 months of progress after 12 months of learning from home. And this data was drawn from 69 panel schools in 4 Inovasi provinces. And for the wider, this is a big one, for the wider sample schools, the study used both the Indonesian curriculum as well as the SDG, minimum proficiency levels, as reference points to assess learning gaps. So this found a widening gap. You can see here, like the gap between where students were at and where they were supposed to be, the black dotted line. So you can see that, you know, the gaps were then converted into months of learning. So you can see, you know, as it goes higher, this actually longer loss of learning. So not mastering what should be learned in 1 year will have compounding effects on what can be learned in the following year. And if this is not addressed, the gap will continue to grow. I'll go back. You can see the percentage here in the lower here. This is quite low, primarily because Indonesian curriculum standards are set quite high compared to the minimum proficiency level of the SDG here. So if using the SDG levels, the percentage of grade 2 students meeting the MPL would have been 37 instead of 10%, and it would have been 53% for grade 3 instead of 3% using the Indonesian standard. This slide looks at school participation. The colors here show the different levels of parents' incomes. So 4 out of 5 students who did not attend schools came from low student economic background. And this is a big one, but I'm not going to explain everything. So this slide actually looks at the 3 different group factors affecting student learning outcomes, including home environment, child, and the teacher factors. The graphs show students who are marginalized by socioeconomic status, where parents usually, you can see, when they are not able to provide learning support here, or resources for children, or where many children did not attend preschool, or disabled children here. Now going, you can see more detailed information in at this website. I'm happy to share these slides with you. Now, what can be done? Going forward, Inovasi will focus on learning recovery from the pandemic, as well as supporting systemic reforms at the same time. So this work is both at policy and practice level. This is my last slide. So the first 3 areas here you can see show what we do. For example, the government, you know, working with support the government or partners to develop strategies for learning recovery to achieve foundational skills, or fine-tuning policy and strengthening systemic change for inclusive education. And at the district level, it's very important that we support local leadership and stakeholders in developing their own learning strategy based on the local context. And here, the 7 icons below just show a range of activities that we can do to support learning recovery, focusing on foundational skills, teacher training, resources for teachers and students, digital platforms, engaging parents, and also most importantly, making sure that appropriate support is provided based on needs. I think that's all. It's just to conclude that the study showed the impact of the pandemic on early grades learning of literacy and numeracy, and the longer term implications, as well as helping us to more clearly identify areas of focus in order to support learning recovery. Thank you. I'll return the floor to you, George.
Yes, thank you, Ibu Feni. Thank you for focusing the various challenges that we have here in your presentation. Thank you, Ibu. And now we're going to listen to Dr. Iwan Robertino Macau, the head of Learning and Development and Management Office of Xiao Innotech. And he's coming, I believe, in with us from the Philippines. So Dr. Iwan Robertino, the Zoom floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. I am part of the Southeast Asian Ministers of Education organization. We focus on providing capacity building program, specifically on innovative practices for teachers and school heads of Southeast Asia. We're based in the Philippines. We're one of the 3 SEMEO centers located of the 26 SEMEO centers located all over Southeast Asia. So let me share my screen. Today, salamat pagi. Forgot to greet everyone. I'll talk about the school heads, teachers, and learners of Southeast Asia during uncertain times and what we have done to more or less continue with their capacity building during the time of COVID. So everyone knows, as mentioned by our officials, the Ministry of Education of Republic of Indonesia, everyone, almost all in the Philippines actually also resorted to e-learning. However, there are some issues. To be more specific, many, we did mention, according to studies, many were well-versed, but were suddenly required to change their learning delivery. Teaching, learning, and technological issues made problems of equity and education more apparent as ever. And in some cases, the context of the COVID-19 pandemic is not necessarily homeschooling. It's neither as well distance learning, and it's not also online schooling per se, but rather experts call it the COVID-19 schooling. Online education experiences can be viewed as a form of crisis management as well. And the situation provided the opportunity to recreate and reimagine a more expansive and experiential view of the critical literacy practices. To continue, as far as the school heads concerned, leading in uncertain time leads us to say that the pandemic has recreated a new learning experience in terms of utilization of the technology and the applications or platforms. Pre-COVID metrics and rubrics, as mentioned, may be meaningless now, but there is still a need to use the same principles, but rather now in a different context. School heads then are now expected to assist teachers in developing their competencies in the new normal, so to speak, as everyone has mentioned earlier. So we at the SEMEO Indotech, as mentioned, we are part of the Southeast Asian Ministers of Education organization. The secretariat actually is based in Bangkok, Thailand. We're one of the 3 SEMEO centers located in the Philippines. Our focus primarily, as mentioned earlier, is on innovation and technology. Our trust is to provide a better future for every learner in Southeast Asia. As we develop our competency-based programs, we started with the development of a competency framework for Southeast Asian school heads that we started way back 2008. As you can see here, from the first competency framework that we have developed, we managed to come up with around initially 12 major competency strands, and later on around with 106 enabling competencies. For everyone's information, competency framework simply means the required or necessary knowledge, skills, attitudes, and values to become better school heads of Southeast Asia. When we developed this for the first time several years ago, we convened experts in Southeast Asia and came up with this definition, or strands as we call them now. And then we sought permission. We sought the approval of our governing board member from Southeast Asia, representatives from the Ministries of Education of Southeast Asia, to find out if we have done it correctly. And thereafter, we also inquired as to two other areas. The first one is to find out if what would be the priority competency. As you can see, number one is the priority competency during that time. And also we asked them, we inquired what would be the best among the competencies, what should be the priority in terms of training. And presumably, when we gave them this list, they told us that number 3, building curricular and instructional processes, should be the first one. So given this context, we developed an Excels program. We call it Excellence in School Leadership for Southeast Asia, and we called it Flexible Learning Programs. Our first program, which we have also delivered, fortunately, in Indonesia several years ago, is the IC Excels, focusing on instructional and school management. Fortunately, this was also the first course that we have implemented in Thailand, as well as in Laos PDR, as well as some parts of Cambodia. Thereafter, we developed several other courses that focuses on instructional leadership, instructional supervision, peace education, change management, promotion of Southeast Asia integration or ASEAN integration, and very recently courses on disaster risk reduction and management. For obvious reasons, Southeast Asia has been feeling a lot of difficulties in terms of disaster. And very relevant in a way, we also developed the school health or Health Excels program with the assistance of GIZ. Several years later, we decided to, based on the instructions of our governing board, we started revising our competency framework for Southeast Asian school heads. We actually visited several members, senior member countries, and we convened experts, education experts, specifically, to be more specific, representatives from the Ministry of Education, representatives from the Association of Teachers, Association of School Heads, and Association of Parent and Teachers, as well as students. And we came up with this competency framework. As you can see, initially there were 14 major competency areas. Now there are only 5. To be more specific, focusing on personal excellence, instructional leadership, managerial leadership, strategic thinking and innovation, and stakeholder engagement. The ultimate goal is to come up with high-performing school heads of Southeast Asia. Thereafter, we also developed this learning guide. We call it the learning guide, or simply the success competencies of Southeast Asian school heads. We translated this into 7 senior member country languages. To be more specific, that one of the languages that we transferred is Bahasa Indonesia. And this, we gave this to the school heads of Southeast Asia and provided them with inputs like, if you were a school head, what among the 5 competency domains that we have identified, which one do you felt would be appropriate for you, or which one do you felt that you more or less have gaps? Thereafter, we also came up with this very recent course. We call it, as mentioned, when we developed this competency framework for Southeast Asian school heads, we repeated the same process. We also sought the approval of our governing board to find out if we have done it correctly. We also sought their concerns on what should be the priority areas in terms of competencies, and what should be the priority area in terms of development or capacity building. So they responded that strategic thinking and innovation should be the first. And thereafter, for the first time, we came up with 3 courses under STI, and we have totally revamped the way we develop our courses. As you can see here, the first 3 courses that we developed under this strand of STI Course 1 focuses on essentials of STI. The second one focusing on charting an innovative school strategy, and course number 3 focusing on leading and sustaining change. With the onset of pandemic, we used to deliver blended learning program. Specifically, we call it a scholarship program, or the Simyo Education Development Fund program, funded by the Philippine government for Southeast Asian school heads. This is a scholarship program that will be designed on a blended learning modality. Because of the situation, because of the pandemic, we never had a chance to invite them in the Philippines, so we delivered it. We totally reform or repurpose the approach on how we deliver the course. We call this course the Southeast Asian School Leadership Program. And we came up with this program focusing on primarily on the Competency Framework for Southeast Asian School Heads. It's an 8-week practitioner-oriented program for school principals and vice principals. And again, as mentioned, it's a scholarship program where selection and nomination of participants are conducted by the Ministries of Education. In the past, the maximum number of participants that we'll be able to invite in the Philippines is 2, because this is an online program. We managed to invite about 5 representatives from the Simyo member countries, to be more specific, the 11 member countries of Southeast Asia Ministers of Education Organization. And this is how it looks like. We call it the meaningful engagement of the learning journey online. As you can see, we came up, we make use of email communications. We did some sort of a kick-off onboarding activity. We made use of our learning management system, the Moodle-based iFlex, we call it iFlex, the Innotech Flexible Learning Management System. We required them to do a pre-competency assessment. We made use of Facebook, a social media platform. We had some discussion forums. We had some country-level discussions, inter-country discussions. We required them to present assignments, reflective activities, and then, as you can see, since there's a pre-competency assessment, we also require them a post-competency assessment, and finally, an evaluation. The ultimate goal, actually, I think this was mentioned earlier from our colleagues, from the officials of the Ministry of Education. We are also looking at developing a community of school leaders for Southeast Asia. On the other hand, since we did mention, I did mention that we first concentrated on developing the competencies of our school heads. A few years later, we also started developing the competencies of the Southeast Asian teachers. At first, we have identified the competency framework for Southeast Asian teachers for the 21st century. And we purposely call it the Guro 21, which is an acronym that's very familiar with everyone else in Southeast Asia. Guro simply means, again, an acronym getting up responsible and outstanding teachers for Southeast Asia for the 21st century. From this juncture, as we have developed this competency framework, we also came up with these competent courses. We call it the Guro 21 Course 1, focusing on 21st century learning skills, and Guro 21 Course 2, focusing on developing higher order thinking skills. Given the fact that a few years later, you do need to make sure that the competency framework that you have developed needs to be revised, needs to be updated. So several years later, with the assistance, with the engagement, actually, to be more specific, we were engaged by the Ministry of Education of Thailand, specifically the Teachers Council of Thailand, to develop a competency framework for Southeast Asian teachers. And then we came up with this product, we call it the 2017 Southeast Asia Teacher Competency Framework. As you can see from the very unique way, we did very uniquely in the sense that the wordings, the words that we use in this competency framework are more or less relevant to everyone else. And we also make sure that whether you speak English or not, we'll be able to understand what we meant. And if I may recall earlier, one of the officials of the Ministry of Education of Indonesia did mention that the ultimate goal of developing the competencies of teachers and school heads too is to make sure that we have joyful learners. So in this juncture, we made sure this competency framework developed way back 2017, the ultimate goal is to have joyful learners. And we also identified, as did mention, the 4 areas of concern, or for the 4 domains of the Southeast Asian competency framework. To be more specific, knowing and understanding what I teach, helping my students learn, engaging the community, and becoming a better teacher every day. We also came up with this framework definition of the competency domains and the enabling competencies. Thereafter, another product of our competency framework, we developed the Southeast Asia Teacher Competency Framework Course 1. It's a focus, the focus primarily is in developing the professional development of teachers, the in-service teachers. Has been designed, developed, and implemented in the context of the pandemic. And we have, for the first time, actually, we are very proud that when we started inviting teachers all over Southeast Asia, we ended up with 49,000 applicants. However, we can only accommodate 150, but eventually we ended up with 158 teachers from Southeast Asia. The course is a bite-produced learning approach. We're doing a bite-produced learning approach. As you can see here, the asynchronous part of the course focusing on watching video lessons, reading articles, infographics, and slide decks, documenting and reflecting on the journey as teachers on the learning journey, and applying their learnings by way of assignments. The synchronous part of the course focusing primarily on social space and opportunity to learn with and from others. We have some sort of sharing thoughts, insights, and questions in the forum, joining live sessions with classmates and course facilitators. By the way, our course facilitators, we call them flexible learning tutors. They are experts in education from the Ministries of Education, from our partner universities, higher education institutions all over Southeast Asia. They actually guide our learners in their learning journey. And thereafter, we also made use of the Facebook, since it's very popular in the Philippines as well, and some selected countries in Southeast Asia as well. Given the fact that not everyone will be able to participate in an online program, synchronous at that, we also developed a synchronous program. We call it the Massive Open Online Courses. Our first course focusing on teacher competency, the philosophy of teaching. We call it Teach On, keeping the passion alive. Thereafter, we develop a course that focusing on one of the competency strands identified under the Southeast Asia Teacher Competency Framework. We call it Becoming a Better Teacher Every Day. And very recently, an exclusive program developed for the Filipinos, the Filipino teachers. We call it the Early Literacy Instruction for K-3 teachers, which were meant to help teachers develop the literacy, teachers from kinder to grade 3, develop the literacy reading and other literacy programs for their students. As part of the collaborative activities, since it has been mentioned earlier that everything needs to be a collaborative, everything given the fact that COVID has been a source of problem all over. So we need to collaborate with a lot of institutions to make sure that we are up to date, and we also make sure that whatever programs that they gain from Simeo Inotech in particular would be helpful for their professional development as well. We sought accreditation from the Professional Regulations Commission from the Philippines. The PRC, for everyone's information, is the accrediting body. Teachers in the Philippines are required to have a professional teacher's license. They're actually responsible for that. So as part of making sure that you remain updated, teachers are also required to have continuing professional development programs. So when we sought accreditation of our Professional Regulations Commission, they have considered us as a learning service provider. and all of our courses were given around 15 CPD credits. In the Philippines at the moment, if you are looking at renewing your license as teacher, the minimum requirement for renewal is 15 CPD credits. So all of our courses were given 15 CPD credits. So that's actually good news. You need not wait for 3 years to finish the required CPD credits. In one course alone from CMU and EDTech, they will to get 15 CPD credits. We also partnered, as mentioned, with higher education institutions or teacher education institutions. And they gave us 6 academic units. The moment they finish one course from CMU and EDTech, that's equivalent to 6 academic units for their graduate programs. Graduate program, I'm referring to the master's program or the Ph.D. If they want to, if they're already they have already completed their master's program and they want to continue taking the doctorate degree. So it's applicable for both. Thereafter, given the fact that not everyone has, or a number of teachers have, or school heads in particular, have yet to complete their master's program, we also developed a joint graduate diploma program. So that means half of the requirements for your master's program would be applicable. Yes?
Yes, thank you. I think
okay, so that's
one more minute. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so just to complete, the Ministry of Education also in the Philippines requires us, when we provide to be authorized learning service provider, and we also need to accredit our courses. So all of our courses, our Excels and Guru 21 and books were accredited. So that is everyone. So terima kasih. Maraming salamat. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And mabuhay, right, in Philippines?
Yes, that's correct.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So now, thank you, Dr. Juan. Obviously, that's focusing a lot on the principles, yeah, teaching leadership, yeah, for principals of schools and heads of schools. Now, everyone, we have with us today Mr. Daniel Hope from the Course Development Manager of APAC Futurelearn Ltd. So he's coming in from St. Kilda, Melbourne. So I think we, yes, do we have, yeah, there you go. Hi.
Yeah.
How are you, Daniel, with that beautiful shirt of yours in Kilda, Melbourne?
Terima kasih. Ya, selamat sore semuanya. Nama saya Daniel. Saya bekerja untuk Futurelearn, and I will take about 5 minutes of your time to talk to you about a project that the Victorian Government Trade and Investment Commission, alongside Study Melbourne, worked with Futurelearn to deliver earlier this year around upskilling teachers. So I'm just going to share my screen. Apologies in advance if my audio is a little bit difficult. I am, as you mentioned, at St Kilda Beach here in Melbourne at our Christmas function. I just talk through the project rather than sharing my screen for now, and then share with you my slides in a second if I'm able to. So earlier in this year, Futurelearn and Study Melbourne worked together with 10 institutions in Victoria, if you count Futurelearn alongside those institutions. I know Rebecca mentioned this earlier when she was introducing this session, to deliver a professional learning course for teachers across Southeast Asia. So the aim was to bring together expertise and a wealth of expertise from all of these different institutions that normally would work together to help to upskill teachers in the region completely for free. So far to date, we've seen around 2,500 learners or teachers join this course, and around 5% of those have been from Indonesia. And that's a great improvement from Futurelearn's general audience of around 1.5% of our audience being from Indonesia. If you haven't heard of Futurelearn before, we are an online course provider similar to edX or Coursera, massive open online courses. So freely available knowledge from universities around the world, world-leading universities, and in this case, multiple universities and TAFE institutions as well. So this course brings together 10 different modules that are interlinked, that help to bring small bite-sized pieces of professional development to teachers wherever they are in the world. Everything from gender equity in the classroom from Women's Health Victoria to collaboration skills from the Australian Council for Education Research, and how to develop an English speaking presentation from Deakin University's English Language Institute. Futurelearn did also contribute a module in teaching online. Learners are able to access this course, learn for free, completely for free, and complete it and gain a certificate that they can use and share on their LinkedIn with their employer or elsewhere. And there's actually a really interesting story, I think, that links up to what we're talking about here today. From a learner in Malaysia. Her name was Sammy, and she gave birth to triplets earlier in this year. She found that as a teacher, when she was taking maternity leave, she felt disconnected, and she felt it was very difficult to stay connected to what was happening in the classroom and make sure that when she did return, she felt confident in the classroom. And she's taken this course and shared with us a testimonial around how it's enabled her to feel like she's still at the cutting edge, and when she does return early next year, that she hasn't missed a and that she's been able to keep up with the current trends in education and make sure that her classroom is innovative and doing the best things that she possibly can for her learners. So I thought that's a really interesting testimonial. I do, if I manage to get my slides up in just a second, have a little image and story from her as well. But I wanted to take a moment to share with you some insights specifically from Indonesian learners. We've had learners from across Southeast Asia join this course, and indeed from around the world. But in particular from Indonesia, we found that the most popular modules, or the modules that were most heavily engaged with by Indonesian teachers, were around flipped learning from Melbourne Polytechnic Institute. So that involves, for anyone who doesn't know, taking some of the learning and making it pre-work or flipping it outside of the classroom and then applying that in the classroom instance. So doing more practical work, applying the knowledge through case studies in the classroom. The second most popular module, or most engaged with module for Indonesian teachers, was how to teach online. Obviously, that's been something that teachers around the world have had to contend with over the past 18 months to 2 years. Followed by that, supporting students with additional needs was very popular, alongside English presentation skills, and both of those were from Deakin University. Interesting that this differs slightly from other Southeast Asian teaching learners on this course. Learners from the Philippines and Thailand were more likely to engage with the modules on the zone of proximal development and on gender equity in the classroom. But Indonesian learners were more likely to engage with those that were around English language and also teaching online and digital skills. So a few differences regionally as well. In general, the most popular topics on Futurelearn for teachers from Indonesia to engage with are leadership. So around 28% of learners on Futurelearn who identify as teachers and identify their place of residence as Indonesia study a course on leadership, at least one course on leadership. And these teachers are also studying with specific universities that are renowned in the education space. So the three most popular institutions for learners from Indonesia who identify as teachers to study with are Monash University here in Victoria, followed by University College London, UCL, and Coventry University in the UK as well. So a Victorian presence there, and that would make sense given that Monash University now is the first international university with a campus located in Jakarta, which I'll touch on in just a second as well in slightly more depth. Most popular topics we find in general for teachers from Indonesia are English language, so TESOL and TEFL, how to prepare for IELTS, inclusion and special needs, so how to create an inclusive classroom and to deal with students of differing abilities, and then how to teach online as well as the third most popular topic that teachers are searching for from Indonesia. Futurelearn obviously is collaborating currently with Study Melbourne and the Australian Government to support teachers in the region. But we also partner locally. Recently, we signed a partnership agreement with BINUS University, or Bina Nusantara University. And we also have an ongoing partnership with Universitas Pendidikan around education courses in sustainability. So they co-produce courses with the University of Leeds in the UK and deliver those to their education students so that they're enabled when they go into the classroom to teach and learn about sustainability and practice sustainable practices in the classroom as well. And the final thing that I wanted to talk about is sort of into the future, what's happening and where are we going to support teachers and support students with what they may have missed out on through the pandemic. And that for us includes supporting the Monash Jakarta venture through some transnational education. So components of courses being delivered online to enable students to move into the classroom with confidence. And the first of those courses is an academic writing skills course specifically designed for Indonesian students who will be moving to learning in English at the Monash Jakarta campus postgraduate courses. So that's something that's really exciting that we're keen to explore further and engage with. But the key for this presentation is really, as Belinda and Rebecca have shared previously on the chat, and I will share as soon as I hop off as well, is our professional development course for teachers. It really is innovative. It's the first time I'm aware of more than 2 institutions working together across a single course to deliver something for the greater good and for teacher professional development and to really close that gap over time. And it's a really exciting course that you can just kind of dip into if you're interested, take an hour to do a single module, learn something new, and then apply that either just in your life, in your classroom if you're a practicing teacher, or to share that knowledge around in your community. So it's something that's really exciting, and I think kudos needs to be given to Study Melbourne and the Victorian Government Trade and Investment Commission for that initiative. And also, I think a little bit to Futurelearn too, for the social environment that we've created on that course. It really is a community of learners, and that really helps when we've been so isolated over the past 2 years to bring people together and learn from each other. So apologies about the technical difficulties. I really wish I could have shared my screen and showed you this, but I'll try and share it with you in some other way. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Daniel. Very enlightening. And I think the audience here, consisting of leaders of schools and universities. Obviously, we have also from AIBC, our national president of the Australian Indonesian Business Council, Ibu Jennifer Matthews. Thank you for joining today, coming out of Perth. Yeah. And also we have various leaders from various sectors here. But I would like to say that that was very enlightening what you said, because we do have university leaders on board here. And you've mentioned several campuses there, then Deakin University, Melbourne Polytechnic, that we are all engaged with in the higher education sector. So I think this platform that you have established is very useful. And Ibu Rebecca, I noticed you put a link into the chat. So we're not going to have Q&A because we're running out of time. Actually, we've gone over time. But Ibu Rebecca, maybe if you want to just give a little input on that, because this is a program supported by the Victoria government, and so we can access it for free, right?
Right. Yeah.
Of teaching, and I mean, there's online learning there, or teaching there for leaders and teachers and lecturers. Yeah. So to end this session, Ibu Rebecca, maybe if you wanted to add to that, the Commissioner of Victoria for Southeast Asia. Please, Ibu Rebecca.
My pleasure. I want to thank Daniel for his commitment as well, wherever he's coming to us from today. I think we're a bit envious, the sunglasses and the background there. Now, Daniel's just shared his slides as well, so everyone will have access to them in the chat. There are 2 key links. The first one I shared was actually a report completed by Futurelearn in February 2021. Really interesting insights in terms of the future of learning, and many of our speakers today have unpacked that, particularly how that is playing out in Indonesia. So my first link was that report. The second link that Belinda Rimbo has shared is direct access to the collection, the live collection by Futurelearn, including 9 Victorian experts and institutions and Futurelearn themselves. And that program is open until the end of January. Free access. We've already seen great opportunities. And I think, in closing for me, the world faces many challenges. That's the understatement of the century, but education is the key to unlocking those challenges, and backing our teachers and improving teaching and learning is a key focus area and a key opportunity, I think, for us to build on and collaborate together. So we've shared, and I want to thank all of the speakers, you of course, Pak George, for hosting this conversation, but all the speakers today. I think there's a lot for us to learn from each other. There's a lot of collaboration already underway, and our contribution from Victorian Government, Study Melbourne and our Futurelearn partners is this program of learning at the moment, but we're also very open to other partnerships and other opportunities as they emerge.
Thank you, Rebecca. And we will be sharing this information through the IABC Secretariat or the AEDT Secretariat for the higher education leaders here, university leaders. I notice even from Universitas Ciputra, from various universities that are joining us today, and also schools and from all the education sector. We will share this information because I think it's a great opportunity, supported by the very much everyone who's joining on behalf of IABC, on behalf of AEDT and Kadin, Indonesia, who have collaborated with the Victoria government here, represented by the Commissioner for Southeast Asia, Ibu Rebecca Hall, and all the distinguished panelists that has joined us here today, the Indonesian government, Dr. Iwan, Syahril, the Director General, and also from the Embassy of Australia, the Education Counsellor, Mr. Zhang. And for all the panelists here, I want to thank you all. We've gone over time, but everybody's stuck in with us today because this is a very important topic. And I think a very important opportunity that Ibu Rebecca has just shared. And we will all share that information to you all. Thank you, everyone, and have a good day. And to all of you that we don't see each other again, we wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Take care, everyone. Stay safe, stay well, and we'll see each other next year. Bye-bye.
Thank you.